Welcome back to Atlantic Fellows Conversations from the Climate Action Convening in Bogota, Colombia. I'm Fionnuala Sweeney. In this podcast, we hear from Atlantic Fellows Pham Thi Ngoc Bic from Vietnam and Gil Lopez from the US, discussing the importance of clean water for everyone.
Hello, my name is Pham Thi Ngoc Bic, Atlantic Fellow for Health Equity in Southeast Asia. I come from Hanoi, Vietnam.
I'm Gil. I'm part of the Atlantic Fellows for Health Equity based in Washington University in DC. My work looks at migration and health. Currently, I'm doing some projects on water in the desert in the West. What is the relationship between water and the immigrant community from Latin America in the Arizona desert? In the global north, we sometimes believe that we're the most prosperous and well off, but there's these huge inequities, and water is one of them, like how it affects certain populations, unequally affecting different groups.
I think water is the food, the potential food, even in the river, in the lake, in the ocean. Every year, I know that UN agencies, especially FAO, they also have the campaigns for the water. In Vietnam, we also implementing some kind of campaign to celebrate the day that the water is food. I'm founder of Slow Food Community in Hanoi. And before I work for United Nations Human Settlements Program, water is one of the issues that UN has to be focused on. At this moment, I'm support for the government of Vietnam for the sustainable transformation of food system through the healthy diets for all. We have just got the good news that we have been selected as one of the members to be the main partnership of the food system of the government. The food system have the agriculture input and also packaging, distribution, consumer targets. And therefore, to have the better health and to have the health equity for all, we want to start from the food system. In 2021, Vietnam convened the Food Summit in Rome. And last year, we also raised the issue of sustainable transformation of food system. We support farmers and also the local community initiatives. For example, we organize the World Disco Soup Day in order to raise the issue to save the food and to reduce the food loss and food waste and the greenhouse gas emission as well as the climate change.
That's great. It makes me think of the project that we're doing. Water is life, and that's actually the name of our project. Agua es vida. In Spanish, water is life. The importance of having clean water coming into farming, but also to be conscious of the water that comes out of farming. I'm thinking the pesticides used in the United States, which is corporate industrial agriculture, and the runoff that comes from the water you use for farming, the water we use for beef, how much water we waste just to have hamburger meat. Clean water and accessible water for everybody is important. Project that we do in Phoenix, Arizona, one of the issues we're having is it's in the middle of a desert. So we have Phoenix and Las Vegas in Nevada, the two fastest growing cities in the United States, and they're in the middle of deserts. So The question is, how are we going to sustain life for us, but also plants and animals that are from the desert? Animals depend on plants, and plants depend on having enough access to moisture and all these things. How are we going to sustain life in a desert, in a city that keeps growing? So my project focuses specifically on the Latino community in the Arizona area. About 33 to 35% of the population of Arizona identify as Latino or having heritage from Latin America. And we want to know, what are the beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors around water? And then we compare that or analyze those attitudes, behaviors, and knowledge with, quote unquote, the science. What does the science tell us about water? So we're going to use that to create an exhibition in the Audubon Society in Arizona. So it's sort of like a museum exhibit. It's a way to bring science and bring knowledge about water to the community, but also what can we learn from the community that we could teach science about the way this population is interacting with water. This exhibition has 3 parts. So our goal is when someone comes through this exhibition, they take 3 things away. One is answer to the question, where does the water in Arizona come from? Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things we found, that what we consider basic science knowledge of just the water system, how water gets into the rivers, how does water get into the earth, it's not really lined up with what we know in science. So the first part of that exhibition is answer that question. How does the water get to Arizona? The second part is to answer the question, what are the issues around water in Arizona? And it's important to take a more holistic approach, look at the history of water in the United States and around the world. There's always been certain people who have access to water, others don't. In the U.S., we have a history of brown people, black people specifically, were not allowed to drink out of certain water fountains. They were not allowed to go into certain swimming pools. So the issue of the body politic and water has been very much part of our political and social history. Rivers, when dams occur across the world, what does that do? Especially with indigenous populations, when we dam a river, people lose their livelihoods, they lose their homes. So what are the issues with water in Arizona within the local context to give it that historical and also its current politics about the river? This river in the United States divides states and it also divides countries. We have the border between Mexico and the United States. And we have borders between California, Arizona, Nevada that touch the river. So the issue is who gets access to the water. So the politics around it, the other takeaway from this exhibition. And the third part is what can you do about it? So in the exhibition, we want to give people an opportunity to do things like sign a petition or record yourself talking to one of our politicians. And then we'll be sending this to a politician and make a call to action, not just at an individual level, but also at a political, structural level. We need to make sure that those in power hear from those who are not in power. So that's the exhibition, that's the project we have going on related to water and to bring that knowledge about water both to the community, but also learn from the community to have a more equitable access to water or more equitable distribution of water.
It sounds interesting because I know that on member Slow Food community in Hanoi, he focused on the Mekong Delta River water. And in Vietnam, we also raised the issue of the vanishing foodway in order to see how the food is come from and how the water is come from. Because Vietnam is one of the most 5 countries to be affected by the climate change. And then I think that we can share experiences, lessons learned with you in Arizona and have some kind of collaboration.
Yeah, that's one thing I really appreciate about being here with you and other fellows here in Bogota on this convening. It's these ideas that we're throwing around. But that's one thing I really appreciate about this fellowship. It brings people together. We might be working in different spaces, but they're all connected. Water, food, you can't have food without water. Water, say, is life. And I think these convenings, or this convening specifically, have been very fruitful in learning about the issue more broadly. But I think for me, the takeaway is learning from each other and connecting with each other. So collaborations that we talked about, how do we collaborate together with you, with other fellows? And I think programs like these would really allow us to have this dialogue.
Yeah, I'm also very happy to be in the global convening on the climate change and the planetary health and the opportunity to find collaboration for implementing projects directly together and sharing knowledge. Maybe set up some kind of curriculum in the university with the food and security faculties of the University of Science and Technology in Vietnam. I also thinking how we can keep the energy after the convening. Thank you very much, Gil, and very happy to talk with you and sharing with you and hear from you and learn from you. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to our collaboration. It's been great meeting you here, having this conversation. So thank you very much.
That brings us to the end of this podcast. Thank you for listening. Next time we hear from Atlantic Fellows Ariadne Goring from Australia and Amanda Signini from Brazil. Ariadne works with Indigenous communities on community-based climate solutions. Amanda is a climate justice activist. I'm Fionnuala Sweeney, and you've been listening to Atlantic Fellows Conversations from the Climate Action Convening in Colombia. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it on and subscribe to the series wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to learn more about Atlantic Fellows and their work for equity, please go to our website at www.atlanticfellows.org.